And here he is, the governor of the state of Connecticut. And you know, the proper term, I've been criticized for this, but the proper term is His Excellency the Governor.
I can assure you my wife does not use that, and you don't have to either.
All right, well, if your wife doesn't use it, then we'll bury it for now. All right, let's get right to the questions. Thanks again for joining us on Ask the Governor. This is from David in Manchester. He says, we were told 20 years ago that the income tax was the answer to our fiscal problems, yet the state spending and the deficit have tripled. Why will your tax increases bring a different result?
Well, because I'm starting in a different place. We are going to GAAP finance rules, generally accepted accounting principles. We're going to be transparent and tell the truth about where we are in the budget. I think what happened over the last 20 years is people kept spending money that they didn't really have because they were following accounting rules that didn't make them have to admit the truth. So I began, the day I was sworn in, I walked from one building to another. The first thing I did was to sign an executive order on generally accepted accounting principles. Today we put out a report by the Secretary of OPM which details that by 2014 we will be fully compliant and will have begun paying off the balance of that GAAP transition.
So for the benefit of those who don't know government speak, OPM is the Office of Policy and Management, which is really the state budget office.
Okay.
All right, next question. This is from Robert in Madison. He says, are you prepared to start laying off state employees if union concessions don't come through?
Yes.
That's simple. And I think I just said...
it's simple to say. It's painful for the individuals who have to experience that. It will be painful to reorganize state government in a way that I'd prefer not to. I'd rather create efficiencies over a period of time, limited period of time, but a limited period of time. But if I'm not given that option because we can't come together and to renegotiate these contracts, then I have no other option. And so the answer is yes.
I know you were just meeting with Mark Ojakian, who's your negotiator in these talks. Any news to report?
We're still talking.
Still talking. Well, that's a good thing.
It is a good thing. I mean, listen, if we weren't talking, then you're out of hope. We continue to have these conversations. Listen, I've done this a little bit differently than about 45 other governors. I'm actually admitting what the reality is in Connecticut, and that is that our deficit is too big to cut our way out of it and too big to tax our way out of it, and it's going to take some combination of the two. That is all built on the presumption that the employee group will come back and have reasonable negotiations, and that we'll get to an agreement. Absent that, I don't have a lot of other options.
All right, next question. This is from Christopher in Durham. With whatever new taxes are placed on Connecticut citizens, why can't they be sunset when the state's debt is covered? Same for the union concessions. In other words, when the things look good again, that these increases could be removed.
Well, let's take one at a time. On the employee side, we have the 5th worst funded pension plan of all 50 states in the nation. It is not sustainable, nor will it become sustainable simply because the economy improves. So we really need to talk about some level of structural change there. That's why. With respect to revenue side, we've exhausted $1.5 million in rainy day funds. We've spent all of the stimulus money, and the governor and the legislature are last governor requiring that I borrow money to close this year's balance. I hope we get to the point in relatively short order that we can start cutting taxes. Nothing would make me happier than to be able to do that. But I think we do owe an obligation to rebuild some portion of that rainy day fund first.
All right, let's go to the next question from WTNH.com. This is Joe in Watertown. How will you win back the support of the unions for the next election after asking them for these concessions?
Well, what you don't want is a governor who makes promises they can't keep, and I didn't do that. What I promised labor was that I would treat them with respect, and I have, and that we would have discussions about the issues, and we are. What I did not promise them is that their life wasn't going to change. Nor did I promise during a heated campaign that I would balance the budget without raising taxes. You know, I was running against a guy who was running around the state saying he was going to balance the $3.5 billion deficit by cutting spending by $2 billion and not raising taxes. Well, that's $1.5 billion out of whack. So I didn't make the promise that he made. And in some senses, maybe because I wouldn't make promises to labor, and I wouldn't make promises that I couldn't keep to the public. Maybe I'm the right guy at the right time to actually put this state back in order.
Jennifer in Winstead asks, have you and the other state legislators, well, you and the state legislators, I guess that should be, taken a pay cut or accepted higher insurance premiums to help the state of Connecticut? What's being done to eliminate or limit pensions and benefits for retired state employees?
Well, again, the master document with respect to whatever anyone's paid in state government is not. It is, in fact, the agreements with labor, organized labor. So whatever comes will be applied to all. But let me go a step further. I lowered the number of employees in the governor's office by 15%, and no one who came into state government to work in my administration is eligible for these quote-unquote longevity payments.
Right, that are just going out this week, I think.
Yeah,
longevity
so my employees, some of whom have come back into government after years of service, are not eligible for that. So yeah, I am leading by example.
Anonymous always gets a few questions on these shows. Anonymous says, why doesn't the government do anything about gas gouging? Some stations are raising prices 2 or more times a day.
Wow. You know, we don't actually have many regulatory tools to use in that marketplace, but I'll talk to, we do have a working group led by Dan Esty, who is currently the head of DEP, but soon to be Energy and Environmental Protection. We do have a working group looking at the gas price issue, and next time I see Anonymous, I'll tell them about it.
You were born and raised in Stamford. The price is always higher down there.
By about 20 cents a gallon.
Right, and the companies say that there's zone pricing because of it costs more to operate in Stamford than it does, for example, in Groton or somewhere else.
Personally, I don't buy that.
You don't buy it?
I don't buy it.
Okay.
I think that's gouging. What they're doing there is gouging. It comes into ports throughout the state, and the additional amount that the wholesaler is charging has nothing to do with what the cost of operating a gas station is.
Next question is from James in Danbury. Why spend state money or any money on a futile high-speed rail system between New Haven and Springfield, Massachusetts?
Why is it futile? In fact, let me say this, that it's a far less expensive way to move people than adding a lane to 91 or to any other way to improve the flow of traffic. Additionally, this will be a gigantic economic boom to many of the communities who will see their stations come back, commutation traffic being brought back to the centers of towns. It really is going to be the economy of Connecticut's future.
And the chances are good that more money is coming from the federal government?
I'm feeling pretty good.
Here's another question from Anonymous. I don't know how he got 2 questions, but anyway. How efficient do you believe that the bus route between Hartford and New Britain will be, and why? This is the dedicated lane of road for the bus.
There are about 7,000 people who use buses currently. We believe that, this...
Where, sir? Between New Britain and Hartford?
New Britain, well, on the I-84 corridor.
Okay, right.
We believe that this could increase that traffic to about 16,000 passengers. If you assume that most of those people come out of single occupancy vehicles, what it's going to do is eliminate about 2/3 of the congestion on I-84 for morning commutation. Again, it's far less expensive than adding additional lanes on I-84 or building better connector systems, road systems, into I-84.
Why not do rail there? Some of the critics of this busway have said that it's $60 million a mile for the busway. It would be a lot less to just improve the rail line.
Oh, and I think in the long run, if you're talking about a Waterbury to Bristol to Hartford, I'm in agreement with that. That's why I'm putting $1 million into the budget to actually do the early work. But that money for that project doesn't exist in Washington right now. The money for the bus project does. This project's been worked on for 14 years. The money is in place. We've already spent about $60 million. It's time to get this thing built, put people to work to build it, but ultimately to put more people on the system using buses to get in and out of Hartford.
Okay, now, do we have time for question 10? Is that right? Okay. This is from Mark in Old Lyme. Is the governor confident that no jobs will be lost and taxpayers won't just end up covering the costs of passing Senate Bill 1176? This is the energy generating tax that would be highest on the Millstone nuclear power complex. They say it would be about $330 million a year, and it would make the plant economically unfeasible, and they'd shut it down.
Well, I'm not sure they would shut it down because they would have the stranded costs of the plant to begin with. Having said that, that's not my tax. It's not a tax that I have publicly supported, nor is it a tax that I think is going to come out of the legislature.
But are you interested in it? I've had a member of the Energy Committee tell me he thinks you're interested in it because it does generate a lot of money.
I don't, what I put forward a 0.2 of 1 cent tax. I think you might see that get slightly higher. That would generate about $50 million. That's the tax I put forward, not a $300 million tax.
So would you veto this bill?
I don't think it's coming that way.
You don't think it's coming?
I don't think it's coming.
Coming to you. All right. And next question? Is that right? Okay, John in Hamden, he says, rather than abolish the death penalty, why can't you limit the appeals process?
First of all, I can't abolish it unless the legislature sends me a bill to do that.
Right.
So I have no power.
They appear to be on track to do that.
And that brings me back to something that I spent most of the summer and fall talking about. I don't believe that there's any connection between the existence of the death penalty and lowering crime. If there was, Texas would be the safest state in the nation and have the fewest homicides, and it doesn't. And we know that we've put people to death wrongly. We've made many, many mistakes, and that's a bell you can't unring. And we also know that it has been disproportionately applied to people along racial lines. For all of those reasons and others, I don't believe it's the right thing for our state.
You know that there is a coalition of Republicans and Democrats in this building who would like to put together an amendment to make the appeals process go faster so the existing law would actually work faster.
Yeah, you know what, I don't think that set of proposals actually works and would do that. As you know, we have people on death row in Connecticut for 20 years and more now. The law as it exists has not worked. It costs us about twice as much to have a prisoner on death row as it would to sustain him without the possibility of parole in a jail.
This is Ask the Governor. I'm Chief Capitol Correspondent Mark Davis, and now we're going to go straight away to some of your questions that have been submitted on video. Let's watch.
Governor Malloy, will you be signing Senate Bill 1015 in the very near future?
Okay, 1015 is the bill for palliative marijuana, which is a polysyllabic word meaning marijuana that can be used for medical purposes.
I haven't reviewed all of the language, but the general concept is one that I'm in agreement with. So presuming what the final language is, the answer would be yes.
What about the proposal by the Pharmacists Association to have it as a controlled substance and only distributed at drugstores?
You know, I think that that's an interesting way to do it, quite frankly, and maybe a superior way. I think there's some concern about running into the federal law concerning that. So
right.
Hopefully the legislature will work it out. But it has been shown to have benefits in the treatment of long-term and chronic pain, particularly for people who are suffering from certain forms of cancer.
All right, next we have another viewer with a question.
What can we do, ourselves, Connecticut people, to help get us out of this debt?
The question is, what can we as Connecticut people do to help us get out of this debt? Listen, I'm asking so much of Connecticut people already. The concept of shared sacrifice is just that we have to recognize that we dug ourselves into a pretty deep hole. I'm already asking so much of the people of Connecticut. All I can ask is that you support and understand what I'm trying to do. I wasn't in state government. I didn't create this problem, but I did get hired to straighten it out, and I'm going to work like the Dickens to do it.
All right, let me just ask you one quick answer. Unemployment numbers went up again last month. What do you make of that?
I predicted that was going to happen. We are laggards in coming out of recession, 6 out of the last 8 recessions. I think you're going to start to see some better numbers around June.
All right, one more quick question on video. Let's watch it.
My question for the governor is he a Red Sox fan or a Yankees fan?
Right.
Yeah, you know, I'm with 51% of the polled Connecticut residents. I'm a Yankees fan. But I will say this, I can have it both ways, because my wife was born in Needham, Massachusetts, and grew up in Massachusetts, and she's a Red Sox fan. So
the house is split.
The house is split.
All right. Governor, thanks for being with us.
Great to be with you.
Hope we can do it again.
You can. You're welcome back. I enjoy this. You know, I did these 17 town hall meetings. They went pretty well. None as easy as this one.
All right. Thank you, Governor.